The Friend Zone Narcissist. Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor, providing you with the world's best information about narcissism delivered to you in a way that you can understand it. And one way of doing this is to utilize real-life examples of a narcissist in action by utilizing video material and articles from newspapers and blogs, etc., and overlaying it with my skilled analysis as to what's really going on so that you can see these behaviors and recognize that this is a narcissist at work, and also in terms of recognizing certain forms of manipulation with real-life examples so that you can better defend yourself. After all, providing you with a real-life example of what I'm talking about makes it so much easier for you to comprehend and apply that knowledge in your day-to-day life. Remember, there are certain activities that can be carried out by whatever classification of person we're talking about. So, for instance, somebody could hand over a bouquet of flowers, whether they're a narcissist, narcissistic but not a narcissist, normal or empathic. However, the driver behind what causes that person to provide those flowers varies dependent upon the classification. And therefore, there are certain behaviors that somebody will engage in, which we would say is a narcissistic indicator, but it doesn't mean per se that that person is a narcissist. As always, we need to look at a range of behaviors. It must be repeated. It must hit with certain categories of behavior which are narcissistic indicators, and it must be over a sustained period of time so that we're able to see that this is ingrained into that person's behavior. It is ingrained into their personality. Too often, people bandy around the term narcissist to basically refer to somebody that has pissed them off. That is not accurate. An individual who is a narcissist, who has narcissistic personality disorder, has to hit with certain criteria, and those criteria must manifest repeatedly over a sustained period of time. I utilize that when I'm undertaking the narc detector, so that people are clear and certain as to what they're dealing with. In this example, we have a narcissist who found himself friend-zoned, and he didn't like it. It comes from The Guardian, written by Rebecca Ratcliffe, who is the Southeast Asia correspondent. The headline is, "Singapore Man Sues Woman for Just Wanting to Be Friends, Not Partners." That headline of itself is a significant red flag. You'll be asking yourself, who the dickens goes around suing somebody just because they want to be friends? What extraordinary behaviour is that? Of itself, that does suggest a lack of accountability for behaviour, a sense of entitlement, grandiosity, an attempt to assert control by use of the law, possible delusion. Can you sue somebody for just wanting to be friends and not partners? Is that magical thinking? A man in Singapore is seeking more than £1.87 million, 3 million Singaporean dollars, in damages from a woman who said she saw him only as a friend, claiming she caused him trauma, victim mentality, and damaged his stellar reputation. Well, he's a bit full of himself, isn't he, to believe that he has a stellar reputation, grandiosity, exaggeration. A defamation case, assertion of control, being brought by K. Kawashikan, claims the damages are to cover loss in earnings and investments, as well as rehabilitation and therapy programs to overcome the sustained trauma, according to court documents. Now, of course, the fact that somebody might knock you back when you thought that you were going to have a romantic relationship and says, "I just want to be friends," some people would find that upsetting. Some people would go, okay, fair enough, there's a little bit of a dent to my self-esteem, but plenty more fish in the sea, I'll get on with it and see what else is out there. But of course, to a particular type of narcissist, such a response is challenge fuel and threatens a sense of control. And in a certain type of narcissist, their response is of course going to be one of, "Ow, that really hurts. I'm traumatized as a consequence of your awful behavior towards me." i.e., the narcissism selects that as the rooted response for the purposes of causing the narcissist to feel a particular way and think a particular way, so that the narcissist then reacts to nullify the threat to control caused by the wounding of being shoved into the friend zone. The lawsuit accused the woman of allegedly defamatory remarks and negligent conduct, according to court papers. A second case filed by Kashigan at a magistrate's court, which claimed the woman breached an agreement to improve their relationship, was recently dismissed as manifestly groundless and without foundation. This is demonstrative of his need to assert control and how he's deluded. This verdict was welcomed by gender equality activists. The judgment, published in January, found his claims to be an abusive process and said Kashigan had an ulterior motive of vexing or oppressing the defendant, namely, of course, asserting control over her and drawing reaction from her by means of fuel. The woman first met Kashigan in 2016, according to court papers, and problems began to arise in 2020 when they became misaligned about how they saw the relationship. While the defendant only regarded the claimant as a friend, he considered her to be his closest friend, the court papers say. Now, of course, two people can have a misunderstanding about the nature of their relationship, and that doesn't mean that any one of them is a narcissist. However, this individual not only sees her as a closest friend as a consequence of his warped perception, but it's his actions thereafter that indicate what he is, namely by going to the law to try and get money out of her, basically because she rebuffed him. The defendant requested for their interactions to be reduced, the judgment said, which caused displeasure to the claimant, Challenge Fuel, who felt this would constitute taking a step back in their relationship, sense of entitlement, need for control. The defendant emphasized the need for boundaries and urged him to be self-reliant. This also would be Challenge Fuel. The judgment said the woman participated in counselling for 18 months after Kashigan previously threatened legal action against her, use of threat to assert control, alleging that he had suffered emotional trauma, victim mentality, pity play, after being told she regarded him only as a friend. While the defendant had hoped that the counselling sessions would help the claimant come to terms with her decision to not pursue a romantic relationship with him, this was not the result. Faced with repeated requests, hoovering, and demands for more frequent meetings, hoovering, and deeper conversations, sense of entitlement, the defendant decided in May 2022 to cease all contact with the claimant, it said. Notice that her lack of response to him in the manner that he deems that he should receive amounted to a threat to control, and therefore, rather than exhibit any emotional empathy for her by accepting that and recognising the boundaries, he failed to recognise the boundaries, proceeded with an absence of emotional empathy, and continued to hoover her. The judgment said she has spent years massaging the claimant's unhappiness, but was now standing up to his threats. The woman began harassment proceedings against Kashigan, threat to control by her bringing proceedings against him, who later filed the $3 million Singaporean dollar claim against her, retaliation, nullification of threat to control as a consequence of her legal proceedings, and afterwards the case in the magistrate's court. An expedited protection order has been obtained against him, though the woman has still been faced with defending legal cases. The case in which he is seeking 3 million Singaporean dollars in damages was due to be heard on the 9th of February. According to the judgment for the magistrate's court case, this separate lawsuit was initiated in July 2022 and is claiming damages for alleged defamatory remarks and negligent conduct, victim mentality, assertion of control. The court paper adds such remarks, he averred, suggested that he had harassed and spied on her, lack of boundary recognition, repeated hoovering, and this caused him to suffer damage to his stellar reputation, grandiosity, magical thinking, as well as trauma, depression, and impacts to his life. For this, he claims damages in excess of 3 million Singaporean dollars, constituting, among others, indefinite loss of potential investments, vagueness, amounting to 1.2 million Singaporean dollars. Aware, a gender equality advocacy group said it was sorry to hear of the woman's ordeal. Women do not owe men their time or attention, but less their friendship, love, sexual activity, or emotional labour, it said. Indeed, however, a narcissist will believe that he is owed those things. Details revealed during the magistrate's court case paint an alarming picture of male sexual and romantic entitlement, Aware said. It added that the complaint seemed an example of DARVO, or deny, attack, reverse victim and offender, which it described as a common tactic employed by abusers who seek to portray themselves as the injured party and punish actual victims for their resistance. Indeed, the response of a narcissist. In a society that views women as less than, many men believe that they have a right to women's lives and bodies and assert themselves accordingly. Concepts such as the friend zone, which implies that women should by default be sexually attracted to the men in their lives, are part of the spectrum of male entitlement. We need to dismantle toxic masculinity and the patriarchal mindsets that underpin this behaviour, Aware said. Now, of course, once again, narcissism is not mentioned, but it's quite clear that this individual behaved as a narcissist would. I've noted that on the 23rd of February, Kashigan finds himself on the receiving end of an application for a protection from harassment application. That takes place at the state courts, 9:30 a.m. on the 23rd of February 2023. And the claimant is someone called Tan Shu Mei, and first name Nora. And the respondent is Kei Kawishigan, the individual, of course, who has been suing her. So he now finds himself on the receiving end of an order for protection, which, of course, is being done as a consequence of the harassment that he has been exhibiting towards her. This application, of course, is something that will threaten his sense of control, and undoubtedly he will deny it, utilising the first line of the twin lines of the narcissistic twin lines of defence. It's clear that this behaviour that has gone on some time shows a pattern of behaviour from him, and of course, bringing court proceedings of this nature shows his deluded nature, the fact that he's wounded by the refusal, and that his narcissism won't allow him to accept that, and instead he fights back in this rather ridiculous manner, indicative of his deluded manner and magical thinking. Another opportunity for you to understand various aspects of narcissism and the people that are engaged in it. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.